A lot of people doubted Alabama coming into the playoff. It was completely reasonable to doubt Alabama coming into the playoff. I had a lot of fun with the build up to that game because I picked Oklahoma to win it. Now, anytime we pick a game on this show, everyone sees it. And then when you're right, no one really says much. When you're wrong, the team that you were wrong about, when they win, they let you hear it. So that was no different the other night. So we're on the field there in Norman. Alabama's down 17-0. Then they come back. They win the game. And afterwards, now granted, it was playful. Some of the coaches, some of the players, oh, man, you doubted us. Now, the fans were dead serious. Oh, man, you doubted us. Absolutely, I doubted you. Did you watch Alabama down the stretch? Did you watch the SEC championship game? Who in the world wasn't doubting Alabama? So what it was up to you to do was silence doubters by playing differently than you had, because the original, the Georgia game, the Auburn game even to an extent, left a lot of reason for doubt, and you found a way to get off the deck, and you did that. Now you got to do it 3 more times, and they'll give you a national championship trophy. That's how the tournament works. But it was going to take something extra. To me, if that team's going to make a run in the playoff, like if Alabama's going to do something special in the playoff, I think it was going to take something extra special to happen or extraordinary to happen. But you never know what that thing is. To put it another way, Alabama sort of cruising along at the trajectory they were was not going to make much noise in the playoff. They get down 17-0, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, this is terrible. But if you believe that there's something extraordinary that has to happen, like a trigger mechanism, you kind of need to get put in that position. And if you don't answer, oh, well, your season's over. If you do answer, it's a lot like Ohio State and Michigan last year. The Michigan loss, although you can't quantifiably prove this, probably propelled Ohio State to becoming what they became in the playoff. So with Alabama, the first quarter of the Oklahoma game looked like the fifth quarter of the SEC championship game. They had 3 3-and-outs. Those drives started on their 12-yard line, 14-yard line, and 25-yard line. Just like the SEC championship game or the first OU game, they get down, OU starts to tilt the field. Conversely, Oklahoma had scoring drives that started on their 41, their 37, and the Bama 46. So some of the same themes started to be the themes of this game, and then it happened. The extraordinary thing happened, and over the span of 5 minutes and change, they go from dead in the water to brand new ball game, 17-all, and then defense took over, 5 sacks in this game, and October Ty showed up, which should be a trademark. October Ty Simpson was a legit Heisman Ty Simpson. October Ty kind of showed up in this game, didn't he? Got himself a little bit of time, still dealing with a pretty ferocious OU front. Place was full throat. It was a very, very tough environment to walk into. And Ty Simpson makes the throws. And look, Lotzier Brooks was a guy we talked about in spring. We went down there and watched him practice in spring, and I came back and I talked about number 17. Used to be Jalen Waddle at Alabama. The guy wearing 17 there now is Lotzier Brooks. And that staff continued to tell us he's a true freshman, not going to take the world by storm first half of the season, but especially back half of the season. That's where that guy, if he doesn't hit the freshman wall, he could show up. And he was there, and you need him because you have not gotten remotely what you would expect to get out of Ryan Williams. And so you have to have backfills. It's pretty impressive, by the way, that if you have a talent like Ryan Williams that's not performing up to expectation, you can still function as a pass game. But that's because you got 5 and you got number 1 and you got number 17 and Cuevas was back. So it's just interesting. We're going to talk a little bit later in the show about how that matters moving ahead. Because it could just be that Bama was playing a mediocre team that was shooting itself in the foot and they'll get boat raced by Indiana. I guess that's possible. It's also possible that they were a rubber band that kind of got pulled back, and then turned loose. Don't know. That's why we're going to play more games. It is wild when you think about Oklahoma and how, I don't know how to put this. It's crazy when you think about Oklahoma and how detached their defensive DNA is with their offense. Normally, teams are very complementary, especially the ones that are around this late in the season. They're playing a very complementary brand of football. And normally, if you've got really, really high-level defensive play, it's coupled with a legit ground game. Oklahoma has high-level defensive play, and they can't run the ball. It's just kind of weird. You could say that to an extent about Bama as well. It's very weird. And those two played each other. So it may be that versus that canceled each other out, and either team that profiles like that stands to get killed when they play teams that are more complementary and more balanced. Could be. We're not necessarily picking that game tonight. But they finished with 33 carries for 55 yards in this game. Oklahoma did. I expected them to get better running the ball this year. They got worse. Statistically, they got worse. And it's crazy because you remember in the spring, you're talking about them going to the portal. They get Ott out of Cal, and he never was really a factor. I don't know, man. I just thought this year that would really ramp up. But offensive line is still a pretty chronic issue for him. I just don't understand how that could be a chronic issue for Oklahoma multiple years running. I don't know. It just doesn't square with me, and yet they still made the playoff. So it sounds doom and gloom because that's the way it always sounds when you end a season. It's not that. It's not that. But there's a lot of good, but there's still a lot of climbing to be done. But if you remember, again, in the preseason, people were looking at Oklahoma. They saw a really tough schedule. They didn't know about this Mateer kid that was coming in from Washington State. They're bringing the coordinator with him. Had a pretty good year. It had injury, and so it went up and down and up and down. Defense did what it was supposed to do. You just got to capitalize on having that kind of defense. Hey, do me one favor right here. Look down. Are you subscribed to the channel? If you are, thank you. If you're not, please click subscribe. It helps us keep the show free and free of corporate interference. All right, that's it for me. Back to the clip. We were also in College Station yesterday for Miami's 10-3 win over Texas A&M. Again, I did the full reaction on this already on the channel, so this is like in addition to that. I said, I think 50 times during the game, Corey Heatherman's name. That's the Miami defensive coordinator. Do you remember last year? How much of you, all of you Miami fans do, how many of you remember last year's Miami team? Cam Ward, just throwing the ball all over the place, running the ball all over the place. It felt like they scored 40 a game, and they needed to because they were giving up 40 a game. Can you imagine a year later? Or put yourself back in your shoes last year and imagine me telling you a year from now, Miami's going to make the playoff, and they're going to go on the road in the first round, face a legit opponent, an opponent that was top 5 very late in the season. Their quarterback's going to barely top 100 passing yards. They're going to put 10 points on the board, and that's going to be good enough. Imagine me telling you that. They could not stop molasses in December defensively last year. And now they're casually going on the road and just completely vice-gripping people. Now, they got a challenge ahead with Ohio State, but they vice-gripped Texas A&M. They put Marcel Reed in a position where he did not take the game over with his legs at all. Miami's done that all year. We documented 5 mobile quarterbacks that had a combined 74 rushing yards against them this year, and they did more of the same against Marcel, and they made him throw the ball, and he threw interceptions because that's what Marcel Reed did multiple times, 4 out of his final 6 games. But still, when you talk about the low output day that you got from Carson Beck, and that's still good enough to win this game. Crazy double thumbs up, full-throated clap for Miami's defensive staff. I didn't see any pre-snap issues, and that place was insanely loud. I talked to Miami a little bit after the game, and they were talking about changes they had to make in order to make sure they could function in that environment, because you could easily see 5 or 6 false starts. You could see a procedural mess. You could see miscommunication. You could have seen all that being an issue, and it wasn't for Miami, and that staff and those players deserve a ton of credit for that. Now, moving forward, look at the line of scrimmage in the playoffs. O-line, D-line combined. Does Miami have the best combination of that, of any team left in the playoff? I'm going to leave that open-ended because they're about a 10-point underdog to Ohio State. So we'll break that game down later a little bit. But congratulations to them. 4 consecutive years of progress now. That kind of solidifies it. It would have been debatable if they lost yesterday, but they just won a playoff game. First time making the playoff, first time winning a playoff game. A lot of people said that's the biggest Miami win since the national title game of 2002. I don't disagree with that. And that now solidifies 4 consecutive years of climbing the ladder under Mario. I think it was 5 wins to 7 wins to a couple of 10-win seasons, and now this 10-win season has a playoff win, so 11 wins. Hats off. And now a very, very tough task ahead. How will Mike Elko assess his quarterback situation? Coming out of this game, coming out of this season, you watched Marcel Reed yesterday. There was really nothing happening. It's a tough defense to go against. Get it? But he only threw for 225 or more in 1 of his final 6 games. 4 of his final 6 games had multiple INTs. Marcel Reed is like a phenomenal person, phenomenal kid. He is not a bad football player. I had a Heisman ticket on Marcel Reed. It's always like feast or famine when you talk about guys. It's not that. There's not famine at all. When he played really, really good teams, they sort of locked down on him. And you got to be a really, really good player to sort of break through that ice. He hasn't been that. I don't want to talk about his ceiling because I don't know what that is, but he was not that this year. All right, so you got to look at that. Mike Elko knows way more about his personnel and his team than me. He's losing his offensive coordinator. They got to look at Marcel Reed. This is one of those conversations we talked about when we entered the NIL era. You're basically professionalizing college football, and it doesn't make me feel great because I think that college football should feel different than the NFL. College sports should feel different than pro sports. But when you professionalize it, you start to have really different sounding conversations than you used to have in college football. Because this, 10 years ago, would be, well, Marcel's just got to get better. We got to hope he makes a leap this year to next year, and the staff's got to get behind him and support him, got to build around him. Now it's, well, if he's not good enough, we'll just go get a guy out of the portal. And we'll shake hands with him and tell him to be on his way. I don't know that that's going to happen. What I'm saying is it's a conversation that's going to happen in that building. It's absolutely a conversation that's going to happen. And that's a place that spends a lot of money on football players. And that's a place that would be very desirable for portal quarterbacks. And so that's why I'm asking it open-endedly. That's what Mike Elko and his staff have to figure out. It could be that they look at Marcel and they say, no, absolutely not. We're 1,000% behind him. And if that's the case, great. I'd prefer it to be that way. But I don't know that it's just some slam dunk that it's going to be that way. You know what's wild is think about how different the 6 seed was versus the 7 seed. A&M was the 7. Ole Miss was the 6. Therefore, Ole Miss got to play Tulane, and A&M had to draw Miami. And, you know, it was funny, like people have their jokes about Miami. When we get to the playoffs, I think about players. I don't think about your record. I don't think about anything because very, very clearly, Miami, the version of Miami that played SMU or the version that played Louisville, I don't believe was the same version that played yesterday. They play very, very much up to an opponent in those situations. That is something that is an entire separate conversation. But I watched much of the second half of this game with Rhett Lashley, who was there doing work for ACC Network. I mean, they beat Miami earlier this year. And just to hear the conversation, Jimbo Fisher standing right there as well, to hear the conversation between those guys, oh, man, if I could just record that. We could sell those for $19.95 a piece, easily. Just the unedited, unfiltered, off-the-record coaches conversation. But I did not do that because my battery was low. But, yeah, I think that when you got that caliber of player in the playoff, then I didn't really care that they lost 2 games during the regular season. That is an extremely tough draw as a first-round opponent. So, also, A&M was dealing with staff churn. And I don't know. I didn't listen to Elko's postgame. That staff churn at A&M is no joke. They're not the only ones dealing with that. And by that, I mean their offensive coordinator has taken another job. Their defensive coordinator has taken another job. Now, they're still there. You know, they're coaching through the end of the year. Those guys' full focus are not in the game. They're just not. Not in just the game, the prep leading up to the game. You've only got so much focus. And when you're trying to put together a whole new staff, like Colin Klein going to Kansas State, how in the world do you think he's going to be fully dialed in? This is no criticism of Colin Klein. If I were him, I would have taken the Kansas State job. And if I were him, I'd put as much time as I thought was necessary into prep. But my future is as the head coach of Kansas State. And I'm trying to staff, and I'm trying to fill that building. I'm trying to look at portal. I only have so many hours in a day. And I'll tell you where it gets really awkward. Where it gets really awkward, Dan Landing's dealing with this right now, is when guys leave your building, it's usually because you've been winning. And you're usually winning because you got a lot of good people in your building. And when some of those good people leave your building, they don't just leave. They want to take others of your good people with them. And so imagine that dynamic. You're Mike Elko, and on one hand, you wish your guys well. Good for him. He got a head coaching job. Don't be taking all my guys. I've watched Kirby deal with this. Saban dealt with it every year. And I guarantee you that happened in that building. So you're trying to prepare for a Miami team that's fully locked in. Didn't have any staff churn. So that's not an easy thing. Ole Miss and Oregon, we already talked about these games. Oregon basically got work in yesterday. That's what that amounted to. Whatever you think about the G5, I did a whole separate topic. If you're just watching this individual segment, I did a whole separate topic on this. So I'm not doing the whole G5, should they or should they not have been in. Ole Miss at least got to exercise the whole Lane Kiffin cloud. Like if there was anyone over there still mad or angry or they needed that washed clean from their soul, well, I would imagine emphatically winning a home playoff game did that. If I were an Ole Miss fan, it would have. And I saw Mincy, and he looked as happy as a clam. So things looked good in Oxford yesterday. Was there even a cloud in the sky? Looked like a Chamber of Commerce day there in Oxford, Mississippi. So congrats to everyone who won. Those were just some more thoughts I had.